This is question 1, chapter 1. I'm going to focus on two main events that our book talks about, the COVID-19 pandemic and the death of George Floyd, and then I'm going to close with my thoughts on how the current and future AI event is going to impact the field. With the COVID-19 pandemic, it caused an immediate need for remote work to become a necessity overnight. A large number of employees had to leave the workforce in what experts were calling the Great Resignation, and the ones that did stay started to become stretched so thin that they had to do the bare minimum, which started to create a culture of quiet quitters. The issues led to companies now needing to understand, 1, how work functions outside of a traditional office space, and 2, how work-life balance impacts things like performance and retention. So researchers began studies on remote work, employee well-being, work-family conflict, and virtual collaboration. Some important results that came from this time showed that performance in remote environments depends less on physical location and more on things like autonomy, communication, and organizational support. And evidence also suggests that hybrid work can improve retention without reducing productivity. However, there are some counter studies now showing downsides like reduced helping behaviors and more of a disconnect between your team when employees are working remotely. In practice, studies like these gave organizations real tools to tackle the issues coming from the pandemic to help increase performance, communication, connectivity, and retention. The death of George Floyd caused a social movement that sparked companies to take a closer look at their DEI initiatives. IO psychologists began expanding their research on DEI, focusing on solving for which initiatives actually improve employee experience and organizational outcomes. Two key studies I found from 2023 show that framing diversity initiatives around business outcomes like performance and innovation can unintentionally reduce the feelings of belonging for underrepresented employees. And we also found that there's some resistance to DEI efforts. When organizations proactively prepare their employees to frame these initiatives as important for growth rather than another compliance requirement, they can get them to engage in those more proactively. Now, practitioners can help companies move past simplified DEI programming and focus more on building authentic and equitable systems. The last event I want to briefly touch on, which isn't in the course book yet, but definitely it's going to be, is the impact AI will have on the field. For example, research from 2023 found that when a generative AI tool was introduced to a customer support setting, the productivity increased by 14%. Another finding in 2023 showed that people using generative AI tools completed their writing tasks 30 to 40% faster and produced higher quality results. So these items show from an IO perspective, the event is going to really shift how we think about performance and development. It's going to raise questions about how do we evaluate employees, what does skill even mean when AI is involved, how can companies train and implement these tools, and how can they make sure people are still learning and not just outsourcing all of the thinking. I do think another key item is going to be the morality balance behind some of these AI implementations. For example, if productivity means laying off entire departments or cutting large workforces in exchange for technology and profits, how will that impact their public reputation? How is it going to drive internal morale? And how will those items impact their bottom line? In conclusion, these events suggest that the future of work is going to continue to rapidly change, and IO researchers and practitioners are going to need to keep up with the studies and application to continue to assist companies through these large-scale changes.